I'm good. And you?
I'm fine. We had just a new class that started today in Social Hackers Academy, so it was like really exciting. New people, introducing them to the course, to what they're about to learn. So it's always a really nice opportunity to see new people, new faces from all around the world.
And they're all excited to learn.
Yeah. But also a little bit nervous, like, okay.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Am I going to make it?
I know. I used to teach at a small boot camp. Sorry, my dog's very excited. She's like trying to join. And the other one's over there. But yeah, it's fun. Petting her. She's down here. So are you in Athens?
Yes. And you're based in
New Orleans.
New Orleans. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You were born in New Orleans, or you?
No, in Texas. So not too far away. But yeah, I figured I would tell people. Are a lot of the students in Greece, or are they worldwide? Worldwide
right now. After we switched to online education.
For the pandemic.
Yeah. We decided to switch to online classes, and then people started joining from all around the world, and it's pretty exciting. I mean, it's really nice to see this, beautiful spectrum, of people and cultures, and it's really nice. I enjoyed this a lot.
That's awesome.
We have quite a time difference, I guess. What time is it right now over there?
It is 11 a.m.
Okay. So thank you for first of all for this opportunity to join, and thank you for supporting the cause. Good evening.
No problem. I was typing in the chat. I realized I was only writing to panelists the first time.
Yeah. So there's this, I really enjoy this talk. Will really enjoy this talk because I just love working with Netlify, and we work with Netlify a lot in the school. Right from day one, this is how you upload your first website.
Exactly.
There's this, drag and drop from Netlify. It's like the easiest way I found to, that's it. Yes, you just drop your folder there and boom, you have your HTML online, which is amazing.
It is. It's really awesome. It used to be much harder.
Yeah. I mean, they made quite a beautiful job, and also serverless functions. I mean, when we are like, this is a very frequently asked question, like, when we we start touching like the end of the course where we talk a little bit about serverless and all these backend technologies as services, and we touch about Firebase a little bit, but we directly connect to Firebase. We have these scripts on the front end, and everybody is asking, okay, how can we make this more secure? How can we, go through another route? And so while we're always at the point where they're just near the end of the course, everybody asks about this, and of course the answer is always, we have these things called serverless functions, and you're quite likely that you already know Netlify, and it's like really easy. So I guess this talk is like really will pretty much enlighten all these these students, and we will put the link on this last topic on the course. Hello, Gogi. Hello, Maria. I see a lot of students here. Thank you for joining. We'll be waiting for a couple of minutes. I don't know. Would you like to share anything from your backgrounds here?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm half Greek. I'll start on that side since like the name is obviously Greek. My dad immigrated to the U.S. in the 70s and met my mom, and I like to joke that my name is more Greek than Greeks because Americans also have middle names. So I also have a Greek middle name. I have 3 Greek names. And funnily enough, they misspelled his name when he immigrated. So in Greece, my last name is Karamalegos, like the bread.
Yeah,
And he grew up in Piraeus, but my grandparents are from Santorini and Ikaria. So I kind of won the lottery on the islands. I think.
I guess you visit these islands?
Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah. I try to go like every other year, but you know, it's been not so easy. I am definitely, I mean, I guess all the Karamalegos on Santorini are related, but I don't actually know the winery people. I'm looking in the chat too.
Yeah.
I am related. There's a winery like on Ikaria, and there's one like way up on the mountain in Rajes, and I am related to that guy. He's like a second cousin. It's kind of funny. But yeah, but I've been born and raised in the US, so yeah. And I am also a career switcher. I mean, I guess before we start, you know, everyone here is in boot camp, so they're probably a career switcher or, you know, first time career. But I'm actually a little bit older. I've been working for a while. When I studied chemical engineering in college, and I did semiconductor process engineering for several years. And then I went to business school and got my MBA. And then I was a management consultant, and I worked in various things. And but I had no life, so I was like, I should do something that has meaning. So then I started working in public education here in New Orleans. I not as a teacher, but like in their like head office doing different things. But I kept coming to coding on the side. So I was like, well, maybe I should do this for real. So I actually did 2 boot camps because the first one wasn't in depth enough. And then the second one, I dove in a lot more. And yeah, and then I started doing, that was like 6 years ago, I guess. So.
Wow. It was were these full stack development courses or front end? Or?
Yeah, they were both full stack, and at that time Rails was like, you know, the hot thing for boot camps. So I learned Rails originally, and I feel like more of them at that time focused mostly on like Rails itself. And so the front end, like, you know, we learned it, but I feel like I didn't learn it as well as I could have. And then afterwards I taught myself React, and that's how I got my first job at a dev shop. And ever since, I used to like the back end more, but now I kind of like the front end, especially now that we can do cool things like serverless and Jamstack.
And I think React changed the scenery a lot. I mean, I see students. I was first intimidated by React, and I kind of felt that maybe the students will feel like this. But I see that most of them are really excited when we get into React, and they mention, they say, okay, what did you do before React? You know, so and it's amazing. I think a lot of students like gets not stuck, like they really enjoy the front end when we reach React, because this certain abstraction and these the components, it's like a great way to work.
Yeah, it's funny though, now I've gotten like, I still use React on bigger apps, but I actually like 11D a lot, which is kind of going more back to basics. And it's also funny, like whenever I learn new things, I feel like I get the most bang for my buck for when I learn things that are like CSS. Just to make, because I feel like, so I also do a lot of performance consulting. So like site loading performance. And I see companies doing like dumb things in JavaScript that they could have just done with like a basic CSS thing. But you don't learn all of that right away. It comes with time.
Yeah. 11D, since you mentioned, is also an amazing technology. I'm really in love with it. I've been working it in projects, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm actually going to use it today only because it's easy to like have like a layout, and like we don't actually have a lot of front end.
Okay, I guess we can start with the main presentation. Let me stop sharing. I think now you can share your screen.
Yep. Let's make sure let me move my speaker notes first. And share desktop too. All right, do you see a big pink slide?
Yep.
Yay, I did it right. Oops, I just hit the wrong button. I want to open up the chat so I can see. Although feel free, I don't know if actually people can unmute, but you can like interrupt me and if someone has a question and I don't notice it.
I will be checking the chat and I will be helping you. So throughout the presentation, if there's, so I will be keeping an eye.
Yeah, sure. I will start. I will say, like, before we start, I've been like a teacher before and I've done a lot of speaking. So interrupting me to ask a question so you're not lost is totally fine. You won't throw me off. So hi, my name is Aspasia Karamalegos. Although I guess in Greece it would be Aspasia Karamalegos or Karamalegu because, you know, in the US we don't change our last names. But I am excited to talk to you today about serverless functions and Netlify. You can find more about me on my website, sia.codes. I am a freelance web developer and performance engineer in New Orleans. And if you know anything about New Orleans, we have Mardi Gras and I like building my own costume. So this was me at the last Mardi Gras we could actually have in person as a champagne bottle. And I am on Twitter and I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'm at the Green Greek. So if you have questions like after today, feel free to tweet at me. And you can find these slides at this link. I'm going to copy the link address. So you don't have to like furiously copy or anything. And then also I have turned this talk into a tutorial. So if you go to my website, it's the most recent post here. So I'm going to just post a link to that post as well. Apparently my internet's going a little slow. But so you don't, as I go through this, I'm actually going to live code some things. You don't have to like, you know, try to follow along. Just try to understand what I'm doing. You also don't have to understand all the code. I don't know how many people here are brand new to the program or who have already gone through the entire thing, but just try to understand like the concepts of some of the things I'm talking about. So what am I going to build? I'm going to start out with that is, I have this website. This is actually, it went several steps further, but if you've ever heard of the astronomy picture of the day, it's this thing that NASA does. And this is like, this is probably the original website. Look, we're better at design now, but I kind of like how they kept it like this, but every day there's a new picture or video or, you know, piece of media. And this actually has an API. So NASA has a lot of cool APIs that you can use, and astronomy picture of the day or APOD is one of them. There's a whole lot of them you can check out. So you can nerd out on space stuff. And also getting into API key is free. You don't need a credit card or anything like that. So in this little website, you can put in your birthday or just, you know, put in any day. I'll put in June 9th. And it's going to take a minute because it's pinging and it's getting like all of the ones ever for that date. We're just going to do one. Wow, this picture is so cool. But yeah, so these are the astronomy pictures of the day for specific dates, because with the API, I can request specific dates. But generally speaking, your API keys are secret, right? So we're going to show how you would save that secretly. So before we actually dive into that, though, what is serverless architecture? Well, it's when applications are broken up into individual functions, and then those functions are hosted by a third-party service like Netlify or Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform. There's so many different services. And they can be invoked and scaled individually. Whereas when you have like a full stack application, like Rails or Node, you usually have to, for example, get an EC2 instance on AWS and then manage that as a server, which isn't so fun for people like me that don't really like to deal with DevOps. Although Heroku's kind of nice. It's like an easier version of that. Oh yeah, that's what I was basically saying, is that there's no need for server management by the developer. We're just maintaining the code itself, and the provider is managing the server. So what is Jamstack? Jamstack is a modern web development architecture based on client-side APIs, client-side JavaScript, reusable APIs, and pre-built markup. What does this look like in practice? So we have our front end that's, pretty standard. Like you have HTML, JavaScript, CSS, images, other assets. But this is a static front end. So it's just the files are hosted somewhere and that's it. And for example, like this is actually an image from Netlify, but we can host on Netlify, and then it actually has an automated build and CI/CD system. And so it serves these files. And then these files can pull from APIs for different services that we would normally have in a full stack application, like a CMS or Stripe or Square, like payments, authorization like Auth0, and then databases like FaunaDB and Hesser Cloud. We can actually all do serverless. So when we talk about the static pages, there are a lot of different things we can use to build those. I mean, first of all, you can use just vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But then there's a lot of popular libraries out there. Like if you like React, Next.js and Gatsby are both React-based. Jekyll was like my first blog was with Jekyll. It's actually a Ruby-based templating one. But now we have both 11D and Hugo are JavaScript versions of that. And I'm a huge fan of 11D. Next is a Vue-based one that's kind of like Next. So let's talk about Netlify. I was going to say, I like to ask people like, why do you love Netlify? But I think it's easier for me to just dive right in. But the first reason why it was like, it used to be a lot harder to even host a static website on the web, unless you were using GitHub Pages. Like that was the first one that got a little bit easier. You just push your code to GitHub and make sure it has a GH Pages branch, and then it would show up. But otherwise, like on my client websites, I would go into AWS and, upload the files to an S3 bucket and set up CloudFront. But then I have to manually set the headers, and it was a big pain. But Netlify makes that all easier, and we're going to see here. Some of my other favorite features are deploy previews for pull requests. So like someone's sending up code changes, we can actually preview what it would look like. And it syncs with all the different services that you use in Netlify, like functions. There's also easy forms. So my website, I have a contact form, and this is a static application, but you used to have a server just to do a form like this. But Netlify has forms, and if I go to the pricing page, the free level actually has like quite a few things in it. Like I actually do a lot of builds, but I don't hit the build minutes. But forms, you can get 100 free per month. So it's like for a personal site, that's fine, and then you can upgrade it, or you can actually move to serverless functions, which would let you get a lot more per month for free. So there's a lot of cool things. They also do automatic CDN or edge deployments, and that means hosting code closer to where the user is trying to access it. And that makes it faster. A big part of web performance is actually just latency. And they do automatic HTTPS and SSL certificates, which is really nice. There's a lot of different things. And automatic Bratley compression, I forgot about that. So let's start our first project. Actually, how many of people in here are like brand new to coding? Do you want to just write in the chat? Or how many of you have gone through the program, or just, say, because this step you might have already seen. I can still go ahead. All right, we'll just go ahead. Basic knowledge only. Okay. So I don't know if you use GitHub much, but GitHub is a place where you can host your code. And so I can just do a new repository. Normally I do this another name, but okay, cool. Delete is available. I do these and then I remember to delete them later. But I'm just going to create a new repository. I could even add a README, but I'm just going to create this repository. And this is just a folder. And what I can do is normally we use Git and the command line, or at least I do, to create code, but I'm just going to manually create a file. So basically I have a folder here. I'm going to create a file that is called index.html.
Sorry to interrupt. Sia, could you zoom in a little bit?
On sorry, I forgot this page is going to be small. So H1, and I'm going to say hello world, and close my H1, and I'm going to commit this file, which is like saving. So GitHub is kind of like Google Docs in a way, except instead of automatically saving, we kind of have specific points in time where we save. So I have this index.html, and it just has this H1 tag, which is a heading level 1, right? And so if I want to deploy that to Netlify, I would log in, and you can log in for free without a credit card. And then I can do new site from Git. I think y'all have done it where you just push it, drag a folder, but I can look for delete in my GitHub repos and give it a second to search all my repos. I have a lot of delete ones in there. There's no build command. There's some questions in here. When I see which branch to deploy, I'm using main, and then we're not using these settings, but I can do that. And it's starting up. If I had a build, it would actually be doing this build processing right here, but I don't. It's just like a file, and that's it. If I refresh this, yeah, it's already published, and you can see it has this funny link. It says nostalgic Hoover dash, and then it's like, a weird number, but my website is now on the internet. Anyone can go there. So that's just really awesome. It's like so much faster to deploy things that way. So that is Netlify the easy way, but we are going to put this on steroids and make it even more powerful. And it's okay if you don't understand all of this, but the Netlify CLI can do some cool things. Have y'all worked with the command line much yet? Maybe not.
All of the students have gone through the terminal and the basic commands from the start. So we're, I guess most of the people here are pretty familiar.
Cool. So what I can do is you would do an npm install netlify-cli-g because you would want it global. I already have it on here, so I'm not going to hit enter. But once you have it installed and you just type Netlify, you can see all the commands that are available to you. Let me make this bigger. Is the font size big enough for you to read this okay?
A couple of clicks more, I think two more ticks bigger would be better.
All right, so it just lists all the different commands you can use. So the ones I use the most are Netlify dev, which uses a local dev server, but with the settings that you actually have stored in Netlify. And open will open your Netlify dashboard for this particular site, which is really convenient. And then there's functions, deploy. I use init a lot. I actually don't use most of these commands because once I do Netlify init, a lot of it's taken care of for me. So your first step would be to do a Netlify login, and it's going to tell me I'm already logged in. But if I wasn't, it would open up a browser window and I would log in. And so right now I have this code. So let me open it up. And it's over here. This is a very basic 11D site. The only thing that's in it, we have two, well, two main scripts. I have the build script, which is what would be used in production, and the start script, which is our, it basically says to build the site and then run a little server so that we can see it locally. And then in my source code, I have an index.html. You can see there's HTML in here, and then it has a layout. This is YAML called YAML front matter, and that layout is inside here, my includes folder. So this is like the rest of my HTML. And so my content is just getting dumped right here. So that's like your first lesson in 11D. But so you don't need to understand all of that, but just know that this is, no, sorry, my dogs. That this is our HTML. And if I run this right now, if I do it npm start, and it's on localhost 8080. I have so many local hosts. Hush, 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 hush. You can see that it looks like the other website, but if I were to actually, if I were to actually try to do something, nothing's going to happen because it's just like a form and it's not hooked up to anything. So that's an intro to our repo. Hush, 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 hush. What, Harry? Come here. Come here. I have to satisfy the dogs. Fun times. It was probably someone closing their car door. All right. What was I? Oh, Netlify CLI. So I have this project, but I want to hook it up to Netlify directly. Let me shrink that one. So what I can do instead of doing that route that I just showed you via GitHub and the Netlify dashboard is I can, let me go back to the top of the screen. I can type Netlify and knit. And that will actually start this kind of little wizard so that we can, I don't know if people call these wizards anymore. It'll ask you a bunch of questions. So what would you like to do? I don't have an existing Netlify site. I'm going to create and configure a new site. And then I only have CS team in mind. And a site name optional. You can try to put a unique name in there and it will, it tells you here, like that one. If it's not available, I forget what happens. I just let it do like the one that they do this. So it will be called Infallible Babbage. And then later on, you can always change that name later and add a custom domain. My build command, it has actually detected that this is 11E. You see that it thinks that that's 11E. So my build command, I'm going to go back to my package JSON, and I'm just going to copy this one to make sure it uses the right build command. And then the directory to deploy. So this is in my settings for 11E, but this is the correct directory. When I do a build, that data gets dumped into _site. My functions folder, I'm just, instead of Netlify functions, I want them just functions. That's like too deep. And then our final step is it says, you know, I don't see a Netlify TOML. Would you like to create one with these build settings? And yes, I want to do that. Sorry.
No problem. A few words about Netlify TOML file. So you're
yeah, sure. Yeah, I was going to show that next. So we can see now that it says success, and then it tells you that we can push whenever I do a git push now. It will it's watching my main branch and it will deploy. If I do Netlify open, it will actually open up the I call this the dashboard for that particular project. But now let's look at, so if I do a git status, we can see that there's this new untracked file called Netlify TOML, and they also modified our git ignore. So let's take a look at that code. In git ignore, they added this no local Netlify folder, and that has my site ID. We don't really use that, but Netlify uses it under the hood. And this TOML folder is a way to have settings for your site in a file. So these are going to mirror what you would see on the dashboard if I go to site settings and look through here. So you can see that the build command is this. The functions folder is going to be called functions. We don't actually have that yet. And the publish folder is site. But there's also other cool things you can do, like redirects. For example, like this is an example redirect, which I have one on. I have redirects on my personal website because I used to use the github.io pages, and I needed to set up some redirects for some of my projects to work right. But yeah, you can do lots of cool things in here. So that's all set up. And now if I go here, you can see my site is on the interwebs. This is a publicly available address, Infallible Babbage. All right, I should pause there to see if there's any questions. Oh, I keep seeing that red dot. Officially. Okay, cool. Any questions before I move on to the next step of actually doing functions? All right, we'll keep going. So let's talk about environment variables. So when you do full stack applications, a lot of times you'll have environment variables, and Netlify can handle those too. You can put some in your Netlify TOML, but because you have to check that into Git, those are going to be public ones. So we're going to pretend like our NASA API key is super secret. It's actually not super secret because I think it's just rate limited. But we're going to pretend like it works like some other APIs, and I actually need to copy my API key from another project for this to work. So give me 1 second in the other window. So many projects. Site settings, build and deploy environment. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is in my dashboard, wait, that's our first one we did. In our dashboard, if I go to, this is what it looks like when you first come to your site. If you go to site settings, build and deploy environment, you can add a variable here. So I can say my NASA API key. And I know this is public, but also this isn't like a really secret variable anyway, so it's fine that we're recording this and you can see it. But normally you wouldn't want people to see that. All right, so this is stored in Netlify now. Now here's some super secret magic. If I do npm start, so I'm gonna start my server. Oh, I forgot, sorry. We can't do npm start. What we need to do is to switch to the, remember I said there, if I type Netlify, that there's a Netlify dev command. Well, that's my local dev server. So what I can do is I could type Netlify dev directly, but I'm lazy and I don't want to have to remember what build command. So I usually change my start command to be Netlify dev. So now if I do npm start, it's going to use that command instead. And it pulls in our stuff from Netlify. Build settings in variable NASA API key. So that's pretty cool, right? Now I can use this as I normally would with process.env for environment variables. All right, so that was a little aside. Now let's jump into serverless functions, and I'm going to a little intro before we dive into the code. But Netlify function, the Netlify flavor of serverless functions. It's called Lambda on AWS, and I don't know what all the other servers call them, but they're basically serverless functions. Netlify actually uses under the hood. They are version controlled, built, and deployed with your site. It says my internet connection is unstable, so can y'all still hear me okay?
We had a few interruptions, but I think we've got you covered.
Okay. Okay. So the functions, they're version controlled, built and deployed with your site, because I'm going to check them in with Git, and they'll be on GitHub, and they can be used in everything like deploy previews. There's also automatic server discovery, like I mentioned, for deploy previews. What I didn't mention yet is in Netlify, if you have a build fail, it will automatically roll back to the previous version or a previous build that worked. So you don't have to worry about like your website going offline completely. In Netlify functions, you can use JavaScript, TypeScript, and Go. All three of those are currently supported. TypeScript was a newer addition. The free tier is pretty generous. So you can at least play with it on like a little side project. I also don't think you need to add a credit card in Netlify too. So you won't get like an AWS. It's unfortunately kind of easy to accidentally get a huge build if you don't set up a budget. But in Netlify, that's not going to happen, or at least I don't think I have my credit card in there. But you get 125,000 free endpoint requests per month, and up to 100 hours of function runtime per month, which is actually quite a bit if you're just doing side projects. And our Netlify Toml, we actually covered this already because the Netlify init generated it for us. But to use functions, you would have to set up a functions folder in here. And then it's all a file-based configuration. So assuming that I've set functions equal to functions folder, the way I would then use functions, so our functions are basically like our backend now. They are only run on the server at Netlify. So the world cannot see them like they can see all of your front end code. So we would write functions in the functions folder and with a file name like hello.js, for example. And if we had this particular function, we can access it on the front end by doing fetch requests to /.netlify functions hello. So that's how it all works together. I think the next slide is, yeah, that's too early for that. So let's actually see this in action. Let's do a hello world Netlify function. So I need to create a new file, and I don't know if you know this trick in VS Code, but you can create a new folder too. So I want functions/hello.js, and it like magically creates the folder and the file. I love VS Code. So now I need my notes. So I do this right. All of your serverless functions are going to have this setup. They are going to have an exports, I can't type, .handler equals async function. And they will have an event and a context available to them. And we'll talk about what those look like later. So we have our exports handler, and the absolute minimum that you must do is return a status code. So we have to return a status code, and these are your HTML or HTTP status codes. Like 200 is okay, 404 is file not found, or is it file not found? I actually have to look up. It's not found. And we can, it's actually optional to give a body, and let's just give a body, and let's say we have to stringify it first. That body is going to be message hello world. So now I have a function, and this is essentially like an API endpoint. And now I'm going to access it on the front end. So this is technically my back end. If I go to my index.html, I have this little script tag for the date input, but we can add to it. And what I can do is say fetch. And remember, my address was /.netlify. It's a little confusing because .netlify doesn't have that folder, but when it's all built out, this is where it's located. Functions hello. And then I can do my dot then response.json. I should turn off those hints when I present. Oh, I always do this. I forget my parentheses. If I forget something and you notice, definitely let me know. And then I have my JSON, and I'm just going to console.log that JSON. Curly brackets trick. It's kind of nice because then you'll see the name JSON and then the object that is in the JSON. Before I actually try running that, I am also in here. Let's go ahead and log the event and context to see what it looks like. So I'm going to log event and context. All right, I have prettier, so it's like auto formatting on save. All right, so you know what I did? Oh yeah, it's fine. I didn't set up a listener, but it's just it's not inside a function anyways. All right, so when I refresh my page, it's actually going to run this script, which is going to hit this endpoint and get a response and then log that response. I should technically do more because do you know about like, if you get a response like a 404 or a 500 response, those are not okay, but they aren't technically errors. So if I had a catch for an error here, it wouldn't show that. We actually first need to check if the response is okay. And if not, we should throw an error. So there's more things you should do, but I'm not going to do that now in the interest of time. All right, so we hit this endpoint, and this endpoint is, well, it's gonna log our event and context so we can see what those actually look like. And then it's just gonna return a body of hello world if we cross our fingers and hope that this works okay. So I'm gonna refresh this page. You probably didn't see that, but I refreshed it. And if I look on the console, you can see object, JSON, message, hello world. Yay, it worked. But I don't see that event and context. Do you know why? Because I logged them from our function, and the function is not on the client side, is on the server side. So to see those, I actually need to go to my terminal. And you can see these in Netlify as well. You would go to, I think during your build, so like you have a deploy, if I go to these deploys, you can see like this deploy log. So that it would be there. Oh, actually that's a deploy log, sorry. On functions, there is a log. It doesn't see ours yet because I haven't pushed the code yet, but you would see the ability to look at the log here. So this is on our server side, and you can see that the event has the request details. It has the path, the method, query string params if we had them, all the headers. If I had a body, it would be here, but I didn't send a body, so it's just undefined. And the context has other things. Things you would put in the context, for example, are auth tokens. So you can do a lot of fancy things here. But that was our hello world. I'm checking my slides. Yep, event and context. Oh, things that you can return. You could do base 64 encoded. We have to have our status code. You can send headers as well. I didn't send any and multi-value headers in the body. So let's bring it all together and actually write something that hits the API. So I'm going to create a new function called apod.js, and I'm just going to copy this function first. And what we are going to do is, let's start on the client side. We need to handle this form, right? We have no form handler for our birthday form because I need to grab the data from the form, and that date is going to be sent to NASA. So I don't want this anymore. What I want is a function handle submit, I'll call it. I forgot what I called it before, but and then event So the first thing we want to do is event.prevent default. Otherwise the page will reload when the default thing for handling a form. And then what we can do is we can use form data. I don't know if you've used form data before, but let's see here. My notes. Yep, there it is. So const form data equals new form data. And we can use our event.target. Right. Yep. And from that target, I'm going to get the value of date. You see, I have this date field. So const date equals form data dot get, I think it's get. Yep. Get date. And now we can do our request. We can say fetch. I should have kept the other one in here so I could just copy paste it. .Netlify functions apod. But we need to give it some options, right? Like we need to send in that data. So our body is going, our method, we want to use post because we want to keep it secret. And then our body, we want to send in that data. So we want JSON.stringify date. And here I'm doing, this is the same as date : date. I don't know if you know this about some ES6 handy things that we can do.
That's a cool shorthand. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really fun shorthand. So now technically this data should come through in our event object on the body. So what I can do is say const, I'm destructuring here with date equals JSON.parse event.body. So this is saying, like I could have said, you know, body equals this thing on the right hand side. And then after that, date equals body.date. But this was a shorthand way of doing it. And what I want to do now is fetch from the NASA API. So those are these docs right here. And this is what it looks like. Like that's my base URL. Actually, here it's an example query. I'm just going to paste that here. But what I need to do first is did something weird here. How did that get all messed up? That's funny. Anyways, but this is Node. So fetch isn't available in the Node API. I forget which version of Node is. So what we need to do before we even do any of that is we need to npm install Node fetch so that we have, it's just one library that you can use for fetching on the back end. So npm install node fetch -- save.
So just to recap, for this whole time, we've been running our own, let's say, backend server locally, right? So everything was running locally right now with the function, right? We still haven't pushed anything runs on your machine.
Yeah, we haven't pushed. Actually, yeah, I think the function is running locally too. I'm not entirely sure, or like the backend part of that, because it probably does run locally. It injects the environment variable, but it's all running locally. Yeah, that makes sense because the log is here. And then once we push, it would actually run in Netlify for the weird URL for the production side project. Sorry, my my English is bad right now. So if we hit infallible Babbage, that would run through Netlify, but that code's not there because I haven't done a git push.
Great, great.
Cool. All right. So now we can use fetch because I installed node fetch. But first I need to say const fetch equals require node fetch. And now I can run fetch. Let's call this the base URL. So then I'm going to do backticks and I'm going to do base URL. And then we need to do question mark. Wait, let's just copy this. Copy it in the right place. And now I can get process.env.nasa API key is I think what I called it. So this is actually being injected locally via Netlify, which is really awesome. So I don't have to manage like a .env file, which is kind of weirdly complicated with Netlify. But what we also want to do is get a specific date. So here is where we would also add like the query params. I think it's literally date equals. I can look at my notes. Or here. Yeah, date. Keep this. And date equals date. So hopefully that is the right thing that I could do. Then response. We'll do this the right way. If not response.ok, we can do throw new error. Oops. Helps if you write it correctly. And then I think we'll do response dot. No, we could just say network response was not okay. And then down here, I can go ahead and add my catch before I forget. So I want to console error it so I can debug it. But then also we still need to do this thing right here. So I'm going to copy this. We need to, or not copy it. And then I can say return object. And then we need to do a status code of like a network error. Status code is going to be 500 for a network error. And body is going to be JSON dot stringify. Actually, did I do a body before? Yep, the error itself. And let me delete that. And I know something's not going to work with our code already because, but I'll let it fail first so we can see what that is. So then we get our JSON. And what I want to do now is return status code. I had a bug for so long because I called it status instead of status code. 200. And body is oh. Okay, so this is not going to work because I'm not returning the fetch. We have to return that fetch for the whole thing to work.
Sia, shouldn't we also return on the first then? Shouldn't be a
You
return
are correct.
response?
I forgot to finish that one out. Return response.json. I'm like, do I have it right this time? We can test it and see.
We probably need in a wait. Oh, let's test it. Yeah. Let's test.
Oh yeah, I did fetch or did regular promises, not async await, just because I never know who knows async await.
Let's break things as always.
Yeah,
As I
yeah.
said, let's.
So let's see what happens. Something happened. I don't know what. Okay, I think we definitely got, you see, like the I know what I did. I always laugh at myself when I do this. Okay, let's look here. So we got this nice function, but what are we not doing yet?
We're not returning an event from the feds, right?
No, we're not. Well, that too. But we don't have an event listener. I don't know how I totally skipped all of that.
The submit was triggered the event, right? The handle submit.
No,
or
I'm not doing.
no,
Like,
okay,
I have
okay,
no event
complete.
listener,
Okay.
so I need to do
Yeah, we need an event handler on the form.
yeah. So I can do document.query selector. There's so many things I just didn't do.
Do you work with jQuery on your projects?
I do not. Like once I learned JavaScript better, and especially ES6, I just so this is what I do now. Add event listener, or if I'm using React, then of course I would not use jQuery because I need so on submit, the function I want to do is handle submit. And we need to do something after this fetch. I'm going to just do res.json. Then JSON. And then let's just do a console log to see it first. We're not going to actually render it yet because
Definitely.
let's do steps. Actually, I'm just going to do JSON. All right, so maybe it works. Let's try. It's got a higher chance this time.
Okay.
Oh, we got an internal error, but I didn't log all my stuff, so.
Okay, he treats the function, right?
Yeah. Let's do this. So what I can do is technically what I should have done here is also handle everything. Let's actually just copy this from there. If your response not okay, throw new error, return. You change this back to response. Let's do a catch as well.
So yes, a quick suggestion. I highly advise you to install the brackets per colorizer for VS Code, which gives a different color for each nested. It's really, really helpful.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll just do error. And I actually think it was something else, but I wanted to do that just to test. Oh no, it worked. Oh, that's weird. I don't know what just happened, but it worked this time. So you can see we got our data. And I'm not going to actually write out how to render that data. I'm going to copy over from my, I have a branch with all this code too. So you can actually run through this step by step, but I will copy this render function over.
Maybe we just display the image.
Oh, well, we can, I have another function here. It's render.
Okay.
And it's actually really fun. I learned templates with this. This is an HTML template. So it's not actually rendered until you like clone it and add it to the DOM. But it makes it so that you don't have to do all that extra stuff, like creating an element from scratch. You can just fill in the empty stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. So now I can say, although this might break the first time, but we can, we'll still console log it just in case I mess this up. Render JSON. Let's see. We're just like doing the run fast and break things version of this. Oh, it worked.
Oh,
I'm always surprised when it works. Like I've been coding for several years now, but I'm always like, yes, it works. It's missing some padding, but you know, that's a style thing.
great, great. Do you have any idea of the browser support for the templates? It's actually the first time I
I don't
see.
know. Let's look. Let's do can I use is like one of my favorite sites.
Yeah, yeah.
Template.
Pretty
Not Internet Explorer, but I
But-
personally don't like, I just don't support Internet Explorer unless someone pays me more to do
Yeah.
so.
No, I think apart from this always red Opera Mini and Internet Explorer, where it's all green. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's actually kind of, a lot of things are like more supported now than they used to be. Like WebP is nearly everywhere. It's not in Safari. It's on Safari on laptop, but not like on iOS, which, you know, that sucks. That's a big chunk. But there's a lot of cool things that are widely available now. I like to use CSS variables a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's this one. Yeah, which is like, it's almost completely supported. So I use that instead of SAS now. I used to use SAS mostly, but yeah. Anyways, so project works, yay. And I just had this one slide that was thanks, to remind you of like the slides link. This is the repo itself, but I would actually suggest just going to my site, sia.codes, to see that it's one of the featured posts right now. So you can find it easily if you actually want to walk through this step by step and try building it yourself. And then if you mess up, the repo actually has, I didn't link to it at the top of the article, sadly.
Your blog is also based on 11t?
Yeah, so this, we're actually using 11t in this. It's like a very basic setup, but there's different branches for the different steps too if you get stuck, so you can compare. But yeah, we are actually using 11t here. Sorry, I didn't clarify that.
No, on your blogs, on your blog site.
Oh, sorry, on the blogs. Yeah, I have like a super, because I have to explain 11t a lot in talks. Although now I have this new meetup I started for 11t, so we don't have to do this all the time. But it's like you kind of want to give a background on it. So I was like, let me just write this up as like a mini tutorial, and it's a basic tutorial. So it doesn't have all the features, but it kind of gives you the flavor of it, so you can see if you like it or not.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
11 is great.
So the mascot's like a possum, so that's why you see all these weird looking animals if you're not in the US and you don't know what a possum is.
Amazing. So we got like the thing working with the function running locally. So the only thing that's left like is to push, and then we can just close node, and everything will run on Netlify server, right?
Things git commit -m. Of course, I should write a better message. And then, oops, I didn't.
I'm just pointing out some things. What you see are some shorthands or aliases for a Git
command.
commands.
Sorry, I always forget to say those. Yeah. So like GST is git status. This is because I have omyzish installed. So I don't have to write out git status every time. GC is git commit. And GA is git add. It's kind of amazing. Already pushed. Okay. So it might be done building too. Let's take a look. It's building right now, which is kind of fun to watch this sometimes. You can see like the whole process. So if it's messed up, you can look here to see what's, not working.
They have done an amazing job.
Yay, it's published. So let's refresh this page. Hopefully it still works here. Let's do a different day. Yay, dancing awards. And then I get distracted because the images are so cool.
Amazing.
Yay.
So now the function is running on the server, and the code is like hidden from the eyes, let's say, of the user, so they cannot peek
Yep.
into your code. So you can have like secret keys and passwords and
Yeah, exactly. And the functions themselves. If you do anything else outside of the functions, they can see that. But
yeah.
this function, they cannot see this function. They can only see the JavaScript that was here in my index HTML. I just put the script directly in here too, like as you were saying earlier.
So functions are the serverless functions are is the place where front-end developers hide their JavaScript code, right? And
yeah, it's like what you would do if you had a full server, but maybe you don't need a full server. Maybe you're just, you just want like some basic task. Then a serverless function is probably a great thing, and it will probably be cheaper than maintaining an entire server if you don't need an entire server.
Yeah, and it's free. I mean, that's amazing. You have like,
yeah, or at least for like quite a few queries. Like if my forms ever go over, I'll probably switch them to use a serverless function, just because I can do 125,000 forms for free then. I guess I can stop sharing now. But yeah, I'm open to like other questions and stuff too. I know we're a little bit over, but I don't mind staying a little longer.
That was amazing.
Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please feel free to ask any questions or and make it fast, because the dog will need to go take take a walk.
So the forms. Oh yeah, that's true. You would need to do a little bit more validations, but I will show you really quick. Oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share this really quick. Desktop too. I am going to show you that if you use just the regular forms, we didn't talk about this, but let me go to my SHA.code site. If I go to forms, because I have a form on there, here, they automatically filter out. So you see verified, I can switch to spam. So I don't see any of the spam stuff. They automatically filter it out. I do one extra step, and I have a honeypot field. I don't know if you've heard of a honeypot field, but if I go to my contact form, it's a way to get bots out. So you don't need to do the reCAPTCHA stuff. So for the most part, if you have, this is my honeypot field. So what happens, this is actually a display none. So you see there's no display here, but a bot doesn't see the CSS. So it fills it out. So if anything is filled out here, it ignores the form completely. So that's another little trick. So yeah, I don't actually get spam emailed to me because the honeypot catches most of it, and then Netlify catches the rest, which is awesome. They use I forgot what it's called. They use a service that helps, a Kismet spam filtering. Oh,
the WordPress, the one that WordPress uses, right?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I purposely didn't learn WordPress so I wouldn't have to build it. I only did my first CMS the last week for the 11D website. I use Sanity though as a headless CMS on an 11D site.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to migrate from WordPress, which I've been working with a lot, into 11D with Netlify CMS. Which is like an amazing combination. It's a CMS free, cheap, no database, no security considerations. With WordPress, you had all these backend languages running, so it's it's an amazing time for front-end developers.
I've only tried Sanity because clearly I've only done one so far, but it's pretty awesome. I mean, even WordPress has a headless CMS, but
what is Sanity? I've heard about it, but
yeah, I'll show you. I think I need to bring up my other screen because I'm actually logged in that way. I have multiple Chrome profiles on my computer. So this is we have this, I'm starting up this 11E meetup. And so this uses a CMS for our, actually for our organizers, but also for the talks and events. Insanity. I mean, this is
So Maria says,
Sanity.io. And then the interface looks like this, which is kind of cool.
sorry, so you're not sharing your screen, I think.
Yeah,
right?
that's funny. You're like, I can't see any of that. Here's it. So sanity.io is the thing. And this is like my dashboard for this 11E meetup. And this is the website. So you can see we have talks, floating possum, and the organizers down here. And this is only people who have permission to log in can see this, but I can add people, like I can add a new person. And then I can use, like my dog, Harry, and I can generate a slug. I could drop an image there. I can do a bio. And then they write here, and then we can actually translate that. It's rich text, but we can translate that to HTML. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
And does it also have like free plans, or how is
Yeah, it has a free plan. They bumped us up just to be nice to like the next one up, but sanity.io.
So many things to learn.
Yeah, I know. It's like I have a million of those things on my list of like things to try out and learn.
Yeah.
Generous usage quota. Let's click that. 500,000. And the thing is, because I'm using
and 2 data sets. Okay,
because I'm using 11D, if I was using something like React, although I could do a static build of React, but if you're doing static builds, so it's not hitting a server every time, then there's no way I'm going to hit this, because we only rebuild when the data has changed. And so it's like, maybe 20 API requests per month,
Wow.
So yeah, but I think they bumped us up to team, which is nice if I want to share with, more than 3 users.
Yeah, that's great. I will definitely look at Sanity.
Yeah.
You understand about things you have to learn when your YouTube recommendation list starts popping some, tutorials or the next hot thing in front, and then you say, okay, now we have Svelte, or Vue. When you thought you had like you loved React, there's a new cool kid on the block, and
of course, there's always so many new cool on the blocks. It's like Svelte. Like Svelte looks pretty cool. I use Preact sometimes because Preact is like a lot smaller. So if I don't need all of the features in React, you can get some performance improvements that way. But it's kind of a pain to like switch like Next.js or something to use Preact. I do prefer Next over Gatsby personally, but I think it depends on your background. Like I think people who came from like, for example, WordPress or just front end, like Gatsby was easier to learn than Next.
No, I would go with Next.js. I mean, I've worked with both, and I think it's much I don't know, easier, and yeah.
Next.js. Yeah. Me too. Cool.
Okay. That was a really great presentation, and we've learned and talked about a lot of really cool technologies. So maybe we can do a presentation on Sanity at some point.
I know that would be good. Yeah. And definitely join the meetup. I know if you're like, new to coding, it's fine if you don't understand everything that's going on. I remember when I didn't either. It was like, eventually it sinks in and you start understanding stuff. And everyone just knows what they know also. Like a lot of people pretend like they're, really smart or whatever, but they know their lane, but they don't necessarily know the things outside of it. No one knows everything. It's impossible to know all of the stuff that's in web development. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I will be contacting you to send me, just to make sure to send me all the links like GitHub repo and slides and everything, so that we haven't missed anything. And yes, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for the presentation and for supporting Social Hackers Academy.
No, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, and goodbye.
All right, bye. Have a nice day, y'all.
You too.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your knowledge. It was a pleasure to have you as part of the Hack the Tech Industry podcast. You can join our live event every last Wednesday of the month, remember, and check our social media to get to know more about our coming events.